Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from the frost-locked Scottish valleys, face-blind screenwriters, and decade-long anniversary letter subversions of British domestic suspense, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of suburban motherhood, weaponized childhood trauma, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an elite maternal asset running a raw tactical sanctuary defense loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, manicured cul-de-sac perimeters of an active, multi-layered familial psychological operation, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of an intense, truth-shattering deception matrix with Her First Lie, the exceptional, pulse-pounding structural masterpiece engineered by the absolute undisputed sovereign of dark domestic trauma exploration, razor-sharp clinical psychology insights, and high-velocity domestic paranoia, Lucinda Berry. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where a fierce, underestimated protective mother asset running an unyielding safety loop, an encroaching, deeply manipulative shadow asset from her dark past running a high-stakes proximity tracking routine, and an absolute defense of a family's final personal sovereignty metrics collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn psychological thrillers where an endangered, hyper-observant female protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of rigged neighborhood dynamics, corrupt domestic gaslighting, and a deadly ring of active childhood memory frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised suburban ecosystem where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated proximity boundaries, and absolute mental stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory stalker network, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, devoted mother builds a flawless new identity to protect her child only for a calculated lie and a ghost from her past to breach her perimeter diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits, this book is engineered to lock you in. Berry completely dominates the high-precision clinical psychology meets suffocating suburban hostility dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating domestic paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like Frida McFadden, Geneva Rose, Lisa Jewell, and Karen Slaughter, while treating realistic behavioral dysfunction logistics, complex multi-generational memory alignment arcs, and protective high-density psychological extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse asset, a hyper-vigilant mother operating under a severe calculation handicap of massive hidden historical trauma, a completely fabricated legal identity profile, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a tightly knit community loop. Behind her rigorous PTA database footprints and tense personal history logs lies an intricate matrix of hidden faction allegiances, deeply buried biological family secrets, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight behind a lifetime of protecting her child's security metrics and surviving complex institutional ambushes, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an encroaching blackmailer network, parsing complex behavioral shifts from her close circle of seemingly perfect neighbors, and shielding her vulnerable sanctuary nodes from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleanup offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter, a single calculated initial falsehood, a minor baseline error designed to shield her household, instantly cross-references with a high-level calculated malice when a predatory figure from her past traces her exact geographic coordinates. As the hostile stalker's execution phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across her domestic timeline, a series of suspicious neighborhood sabotage attempts, targeted home break-ins, and calculation-heavy midnight driveway ambushes threaten to permanently eliminate her independent perimeter. The official diagnostic metrics of the global tracking centers flash white-hot when her unauthorized counter-surveillance maneuvers and raw protective output reveal that her absolute refusal to let her past dismantle her present is radically, impossibly altering the community's historical balance of power. The standard boundaries of routine suburban parenting and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. They are thrust directly into an active, invisible war across elite suburban circles, where deceptive neighborhood allies masking their true identities, highly manipulative childhood tormentors, and a calculation-heavy psychological shadow network launch aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress their survival data stream. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the isolated playroom suites, dark cul-de-sac surveillance perimeters, and private fortified residential chambers into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw emotional stamina to preserve her focus before his relentless calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes her boundaries. The threat factor is purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy deep systemic leverage, psychological warfare, and persistent predatory dominance to break her perimeter, only to realize her hardened defensive protocols and shifting counter-narratives matches raw tactical steps step for step. Every midnight archival excavation, every
silent choice to stand off against an encroaching adversary behind standard security barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanisms chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the suburban elite's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Lucinda Berry reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial frame-up or managing a difficult family revelation. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and psychopathic supremacy. While our central protagonists smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark, possessive loyalty around their household, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that historical emotional hazards have tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient heroine must unleash an unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a psychological thriller, domestic suspense noir, maternal mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one whispered secret triggers a fatal suburban standoff energy, or a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Berry writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, freshly cut suburban grass, sterile clinical corridors, rain-soaked asphalt, dynamic adrenaline, spilled copper, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary standalone marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs, before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Her First Lie is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputtable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell with your network to rewrite the data. So, secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.